Shavua Tov, a good vach. Tonight's story takes us back almost 300 years to a small village in Russia. There was a man who had been wealthy but had lost all of his money. And he got kind of bored with begging door to door to support his family. And he decided to look for a loan to get himself back on his feet and back into the world of business. He heard that in a nearby village was a wealthy man who was very hospitable, gave generously to the poor, and even made loans. And he decided he would make every effort to get to that house, get to that man, sit next to him at the table on Shabbat, and ask him for help. So he made his way to that village, got himself invited for the Friday night meal, together with another 20 or 30 poor people, and he managed to finagle his way to sit right next to the wealthy man. And this wealthy man was very hospitable, made every effort to make his Shabbat table welcoming. Every guest had a Kiddush cup, every guest had their chalot. It was really a meal fit for a king. In fact, he went out of his way so much to make people feel at home that every few feet on the table there was a little container, and inside that was a powder. You may not have heard of this. It was called snuff, something you would inhale just to make you sneeze and maybe clear the sinuses, make you feel better. In the olden days, that's what they did. So they had kiddush, they served the challah, the gefilte fish, the salads, they're ready for the soup, and it's just the appropriate time to reach for a pinch of snuff. The wealthy man reached into his pocket and pulled out a beautiful silver snuff case, opened it up, took a pinch, and left it in front of him on the table. The poor guest, the formerly wealthy man, reached out to help himself to a pinch of snuff as well from the rich man's case. When all of a sudden, he felt a hand grab his hand and stop him. It was the wealthy man who said, "Help yourself to one of those boxes. Why must you take from my box?" And he put the box back in his pocket. This poor man was mortified. He felt he had made a major snafu. He felt there's no way I can ask this guy for a loan after Shabbos, after this response and the reaction to what I did. So basically, he forgot about mentioning anything. He knew it wouldn't work, and he just hid away on the side. He couldn't wait for Shabbat to be over. Shabbat ended, and off on his way he went. Meanwhile, the wealthy man began to experience serious losses in his business. There was fires and storms and sinkings of boats, and he began to lose a lot of money. He ran to his Rebbe, the famous Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, to ask for his advice and his help. And the Rebbe said to him, "It's a pinch of snuff," which also is kind of saying, it's like dust, it's nothing. The wealthy man took this to mean the Rebbe was saying, don't worry about it, it's nothing, keep marching forward. So he went back and he stuck himself back into his business and reinvested and tried all kinds of ways, but the losses kept mounting, and from day to day he was becoming poorer. He was in danger of losing more than half his wealth. He ran back to the rabbi and said, Rebbe, tell me what to do. And the rabbi said, it's a pinch of snuff, which again he interpreted to mean that the Rebbe is saying, it's nothing, it's just dust, go forward. But he couldn't go forward. He kept losing more and more money. So finally he ran back in desperation for the third time and said, Rebbe, help me please. And the Rebbe said, it's a pinch of snuff. And the man said, no, it's not a pinch of snuff. It's my money. I'm losing everything. And Rabbi Levitzuk said, you obviously didn't understand me. I was saying that this has happened to you because of a pinch of snuff. Because you were so insensitive to this man's feelings, you embarrassed him in front of your entire table when you grabbed his hand and said, help yourself to one of the other snuff boxes. It was decreed in heaven that your fortune should be transferred to that poor man. All of a sudden, that Friday night meal came back crystal clear to the wealthy man, and he realized that it had not been so nice and kind and sensitive of him to do that. He began to cry. He realized he had done something wrong. Maybe he never realized how serious it is to hurt someone or embarrass them, and in public. So he turned to Rabbi Levi Yitzchak and said, is there anything I can do now? And the Rebbe said, there's only one hope. If you will find this poor man who now has your money, and you will ask him for something, and he will treat you the way you treated him, he will brush you aside and he'll mistreat you that way, then it'll all be reversed. So the wealthy man made it his life's mission to track down the poor man and to ask him for something and hopefully not get it. He discovered where the man lived, and the man was now wealthy again. And he discovered the man is about to marry off his only child. So he arrived in town in time for the chuppah. And at the chuppah, while the parents of the bride and groom are circling around, he approaches the wealthy man, and he taps him on the shoulder and says, "Excuse me, can I have a pinch of snuff?" Now, which normal parent of a bride marching around under the chuppah, thinking and praying for the future of their child, is going to stop and say, "Sure, my fine man," and reach into your pocket and share your snuff? But that's exactly what the guy did. He stopped, reached into his pocket, and before he could take out anything, the guy fainted on the floor because he realized that his hopes had been dashed, had been blown away. The Rebbe said, if he will treat you like you treated him, he will lose the money. It'll go back to you. But instead, under the chuppah, in the middle of the marching, in the middle of the praying, he stopped to give him the snuff. Of course, no one standing there at the chuppah could understand, why did this guy faint away? He asked for something, and we were giving it to him, and he fainted. So obviously the chuppah was put on pause for a moment, and they took care to revive the guy, and he was just barely able to be revived. He was devastated because he saw there's no hope for him. The father of the bride is very troubled, very upset that by his daughter's wedding such a thing should happen. A guy should faint, and now it looks like he's barely alive. So he went over to him and said, what happened? You asked me for something, I wanted to give it to you. Why did you have such a bad reaction? And why now do you look so sad? He told him the whole story of how he was that man who didn't give him the snuff, and he lost all his money, and this was his hope of getting it back. So, the formerly wealthy man, the father of the bride, the guy with the snuff box in his pocket said, "Let's have a chuppah, allow me to marry off my daughter, and I promise you, I will take care of your family in the most honorable way as long as we're alive." And that's exactly what he did. Be sensitive. Have a great week.